So inspiring, isn't it? Such a great film. So now I'm really delighted to introduce our distinguished guest speakers. Pamela Bright-Moon is the director of this film. She's also a producer and founder of the nonprofit Moon Global Foundation, which supports youth and adults for careers in entertainment. Jacqueline Hamilton serves as the Los Angeles City Deputy Mayor of Neighborhood Services, overseeing the departments of Recreation and Parks, the LA Public Library, the LA Zoo, LA Animal Services, the Department of Cultural Affairs, and El Pueblo Historic Monument. Areva Martin is an award-winning civil rights attorney, advocate, and founder of the Special Needs Network, California's premier autism advocacy organization. LaToya Baldwin-Clark is a professor of law here at the UCLA School of Law. She writes and teaches about education law, family law, property law, and race and discrimination. And our moderator tonight is Dominique de Prima, radio personality, producer, and activist focusing on issues concerning African American communities. She's the host of First Things First on KBLA Talk Radio 1580. And as a quick reminder, after the discussion, we'll have a chance to continue the conversation over some light refreshments out in the lobby. So please join me in giving them all a warm welcome.
We're all coming out. Thank you all for being here. I can say that at least, right? I'm happy that that you're here, and weather conditions and everything. You're troopers, and we appreciate your participation. Ask questions after we go through our dialogue, and we're just interested in knowing what your thoughts were. So as soon as Dominique comes out, I guess we'll get started, right? Yeah.
Well, but I have a question. Anyone here inspired to run for office?
Yes.
That was a lot of inspirational women up there on the screen.
Yes.
And I really appreciate bringing their stories. It's funny, I'm Jacqueline Hamilton. I've worked for Karen Bass, had the pleasure of working for Karen Bass for 11 years. And I've met a whole bunch of those women up there on the screen. And I didn't know a lot of those stories. So I'm really grateful to you, Pamela, for bringing out a lot of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, there's, if you can imagine, 34 remarkable women that are in this film. Each had over an hour, if not an hour, of interview time. And we had to cut all that down to 85 minutes. So if you can imagine, there's more to be seen. So that's our goal in terms of, getting the story out there in terms of a series so that we can give everyone full credit and full time. And there's Dominique. Yay.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Can we start again with a big round of applause for our director in this incredible film?
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. I know it's not easy to get anything done, period, full stop, but particularly, I would imagine, a political film focused on Black women.
Yes.
And it's certainly quite a moment for us right now, too. Everybody's talking about the 92%, Black women, right? That some say we're taking a break from all of it. Some say we're just focusing on us. What role or significance do you hope that this project is having at this particular political moment for Black women electeds?
Well, what I hope first is that we learn our history in terms of how far we've come, so that we can see how far we need to go. We have an opportunity with this film to show that it's resilience, it's support, women helping women, it's an opportunity for our greatness to show up. And and to continue on. So we're just hoping that wherever you are, the film resonates with you in your capacity, and just know that there's a place for you within this political juggernaut.
Areva Martin, attorney Areva Martin, I remember this particular moment when I was on a different radio station than the one I'm currently on. You and I were on the air live together when we finally got word that Kamala Harris would be the vice president. Oh, yeah, and Biden was going to be president. And that was just a transcendent moment. But certainly, you comment on women in politics and men, everybody in politics on CNN and everywhere else. But speak to that moment in its historical context for you and for us.
Yeah, it was really amazing. We were doing an interview, and if you all remember back to that election, votes were being counted, and states had not been called, and it literally we were on the interview, and we got the AP or whatever station broke the news that the Electoral College votes, the swing states, the votes that were needed for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to win. It was really amazing. I've been a part of Kamala Harris's finance committee as she launched her own campaign to be president in that 2020 election. And we saw in the film where she had to bow out of that race because she didn't have the financial backing to go the distance. So it was a full circle moment, having worked so closely with her. I've known her since our college days, so having been a part of that campaign for presidency, her having to drop out, and then her actually becoming the vice president. It was really a surreal moment and a historical moment, and to see her excel in the position of vice president, and then to have her 107-day campaign where she came so close, so incredibly close to becoming the first female, the first African American, the first Asian, Southeast Asian American president. It's just amazing. And I know it was so disappointing to all of us, her loss in this last election, but when you think about someone who literally ran for president and had to drop out and then to become vice president and then to become so close to becoming the president, again, to your point, Pam, in terms of the resilience of Black women, Black female elected officials, I mean, she just embodies that resilience. And her political career has been nothing short of just outstanding.
Professor LaToya Baldwin-Clark, not quite sure how to put this, but right now there is an erasure on a very grand scale. I mean, as Black women, we're used to being erased. And not that I want us to get used to it, by the way, but that's kind of routine. But now it's on a much grander scale, right? As far as our new Secretary of Education couldn't even say that it's legal to teach Black history. Like, I never thought I'd see that in my life. But anyway, I want you to talk about this film in that context, as far as the way that this is not just a film about politics, but it's a Women's History Month, Women's History, Black History film, and why we need that, or why it's important.
Oh, sure. I think that one thing I really appreciated about the film was that it wasn't only just about Black women politicians, but Black women leaders, right? And the way that Black women have taken on these leadership roles, not just in elected office. So when you're talking about, Black women being erased and history being erased, that's something that we are seeing happening all over. But we also are seeing lots of Black women are being those who are at the forefront to say, no, you're not going to do this right now, right? So one of my colleagues, Kimberly Crenshaw, who is working at the forefront of trying to make sure that that children are allowed to learn. She's running a program called The Right to Learn. And so we see Black women being leaders in all of these different areas. And I really appreciated that about the film, because Black women are everywhere. We're everywhere. We're everywhere fighting for everyone at all times. And so I think that that is really, really powerful still in this moment where this erasure is happening. Because Black women are the ones that are at the forefront of making sure, you know, on the very basic level, that our children are allowed to learn about who we are.
And of course, Jacqueline Hamilton being on the inside of working with our mayor and helping to run this important city during a time when, regardless of the attacks on Black politicians and particularly Black women, we have a lot of Black mayors across the country doing amazing things, including my own brother Raz Baraka, who's the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Women as well. How do you see this picture in terms of that legacy of leadership that we're living right now?
Well, I think we never ever give up and understand the magnitude of the shoulders we all stand on. I love that in the movie it said that, going back to Diane Watson and long before, but certainly in the lineage of women that I'm associated with, lift as you climb is a fundamental in the DNA mantra. And I've had the pleasure of learning about that as a core part of Karen Bass, and doing my own little part to mentor along all of the other people that are in our orbit. But that's why, before you came out, I said, who here is inspired to run? It's absolutely fascinating to watch someone come along from a passion to make a change, to understand what the levers of change are, to then deciding they want to wield those levers. And it's a joy and a thrill, and I really hope that people understand that there are paths to get there. It's one of the reasons that I'm a proud LaPi alumni, LA African American Women's Public Policy Institute. You heard about it up on the screen. LaPi, it's every year they do a 10-week, every Saturday course where you get to understand, how do you fundraise? How do you figure out a path to victory? How do you understand who your voters might be and where are they and how do you reach them? And what do you need to think about as a Black woman about how you present yourself and how you craft a message? It's wonderful, and they're not the only ones. There's others out there who are doing this work to try and help people figure out, how do you exercise your leadership and turn your vision, your passion for the change you want to see into action.
Indeed. I was on the board of the Community Coalition when Karen Bass was actually the executive director, and I was on for a long time. And I remember when she made that decision to step away from community organizing and into politics, and it was hard. It was something she really thought long and hard about. You touch on that in the film. You really connect the dots between those formative moments of community activism and then stepping into the political arena. Why did you think that was important? What does that really mean?
Well, it's kind of like what one of my favorite lines is from Julianne Malveaux, who said that these women didn't get up in the morning and say, I want to become a politician. They got up in the morning and said they want to make a change for their community. So if you have that passion to see change in your neighborhood, in your join your HOA, or just be active, know what's going on. My political career, quote unquote, started as a member of the 10th District Women. And I live and still live in the 10th District and grew up there. So I wanted to know what was going on, how we can fill those potholes. That then, elevated to LaPi, myself. And I have a background in broadcast TV. And I really, at the time, didn't see how a organization for women's leadership could help me in my career in broadcast TV, but then the result is the film. I was able to marry both
All the
of my
worlds.
passions into that arena. So wherever you are, again, just know that your voice can be heard in every level of what it is that you're doing.
it's such a huge, vast. I mean, in California, I always say this on the radio, we do have talent. We have talented lawmakers, especially black women, but I mean, black lawmakers in general. We have a huge bench and a long history. How did you even take that on in terms of trying to refine it? This could be a 20-hour movie or a,
Right.
10-part mini series. Like,
Well, one of the things that, we wanted to focus on was that women are not just being born and raised in LA. We know kind of that political landscape with the women. But women all up and down the state are just kicking ass, really. And so we were able to tap into the California Black Women's Collective, Kelly Todd Griffin. That organization initially was gathered to keep the seat. I don't know if you remember that movement.
oh yeah.
Right, where Kamala Harris was, tapped to be VP, and now we had this opening that we needed to keep the seat black, the Senate
The
seat.
Senate seat, yeah.
And so there was a group of women, that just started building, and that group, once that seat was filled, then changed the name of the organization to California Black Women's Collective. And so with that statewide Rolodex, we were able to move up and down the state.
I know you did a show of hands of who's inspired to run for office in the room. I'd like to do that show of hands on the panel. Anyone here thinking they might run? Areva?
No, I do a lot in politics, and
No hands
you need
go up.
people in front
Yeah.
of the camera, right, Pam, and behind the camera. So I like to think of myself as that person that supports those that run. One of the big things you talked about, Law Pie talks about, I've been a guest lecturer for Law Pie, is that raising money. And the film shows that the difficulty of raising money, particularly black women, and many people being discouraged from running for office because they don't like to raise money. They don't like to call and raise money. So one of the roles that I've played a lot, I'm on a lot of finance committees and help raise money for elected officials. That's so important when you want to launch someone. How are they going to do it? And particularly a national campaign or statewide campaign. Right. Now you're talking millions and millions of dollars, and black women have been traditionally or historically handicapped in that way, although now we are seeing women step out and be able to match men, even white men, in terms of what they're able to raise. Obviously, Kamala Harris raising $1 billion+ in 107 days was historic. We've never seen that kind of money raised by any candidate. So to have a black woman do that, I think has changed the game in terms of women in raising money, running for office.
It's funny you say that because people are always trying to get me to run for office, and I'm like, I don't like asking people for money. But
just say something about that
was
for a
his.
moment?
Go ahead.
Well, just I think that we also need to, for women to succeed, we need to change the mindset. It's not necessarily begging; it's giving people an opportunity to support something that it reflects their values. And if you change how you think about that, then you can sometimes change the burden that it feels to go out and raise money, because you're giving someone a chance to do what they already want to do.
Yeah.
I love that. But also to your point, I mean, that was one of the beautiful things that came out of that campaign, right? All these calls, the Zooms, everybody for Kamala, and it started, once again, it started with black women, and it showed what can and is possible. Now, it was interesting how that was then after the election weaponized against her, but that's where we are in history. I don't know, Professor, do you want to say anything about the way that, that role historically has played, the fundraising or the opportunity, and, how we got a little sense of that in this movie as well?
I can't speak directly to the issue of kind of this fundraising and how one goes about doing that, but I think this is an excellent point, and I had never thought about it that way. Yes, when you asked, are people inspired to run? I've definitely thought about it. I do a lot of education work, so thinking about running for school board, and that has been one thing that's really tripped me up, where I'm like, I don't want to ask these people for money. These are, moms and dads but they can give $7 to the PTA. They could probably give $7 to, help me get to where I want to be if you have enough of it. But I do think, yeah, I mean, that has always been something that's been difficult for me to think through, of this idea of how do I ask all these people for this money to do this great thing? So I actually thank you very much, because that helped me a lot think about the ways in which you talk to people about raising money, and that you want to support the things that I'm very interested in doing for the community and needing to have money to do that.
Yeah, I'll just give you another tip. I run a nonprofit, and I had to get in the frame of mind that asking people for money, I wasn't asking you to pay my mortgage or, to support my lifestyle. I was asking for kids. I run a nonprofit that works on behalf of kids with autism. So once I got it in my mind that I'm asking you to support children in need, this isn't about me. You take yourself out of the equation, and you're asking people to support their school district, to support education, to support access to education for kids, then I think it becomes a lot easier. But it's funny, because I remember in the early days, and I'm sure some of the elected officials, Pam, in the movie went through this, people would say to me, "You're so aggressive." Like, so women, we heard that a lot in the movie. Women, when you ask for money, or when you go into a room and you say, "Oh, you run a company. Well, I have a nonprofit. I'd love to talk to you about sponsorship." And you get that like, "Oh my God, you're being so pushy," which never ever has been uttered to a man that walks into a room that asks someone to support his campaign, his nonprofit, his for-profit, or his whatever. It's not the same. But I think younger women, my daughters, different generation, they are not saddled by those, stereotypes and that kind of preconceived notions about what's appropriate for women and what's not.
Right. And just to piggyback on what you said, I also am running a nonprofit, Moon Global Foundation. I support and train kids on how to do production work. And it's the same thing. I will be the last person to call to ask for any type of money or funding. But what it is that you just have to continue with the passion. And when people see that you are active in doing the work, then they get it. They want it to support you. So it's, I think the same with political women and women in any type of leadership positions, that if we see the passion in you and we see, and we're behind what you're saying, then we want to support it. So don't be afraid. I want you to, we have a new candidate for school board here,
Yes.
Absolutely.
and we will support you.
Well, another thing people have to ask for money for is to make films. So how'd that go?
Well, it's still going. It's still going. And I'm sure with every project, with every film, with every thing that we've all done, we see things that we just kind of cringe, like, "Ooh, if I had the money, I would have done something a little different there." But it is what it is, and it has to stand on its own. The story is great, and we are continuing to push it out there. We are on the film festival circuit still. Our goal is to get curriculum into schools. And we are, trying to push to get that done. And again, we have these hours, 34 hours worth of material that some of, Areva, thank God, I mean, she was one of our main gets. And during COVID, believe it or not, I mean, some of those scenes were shot in my living room. We just tried to make the best that we could and tell a story and support the women that are doing the work out in the field. So,
Show of hands, everyone here, everyone on the stage. Anybody go to either the Republican or Democratic conventions last year? Okay. the spirit there was incredible. I got to tell you, especially black women. And it reminds me of this film because it was our convention. Y'all are, okay, you're here, but this is the Black Girls Convention. Y'all can go sit over there. And that spirit to me was very, very powerful. I felt some of that in the film. And, I don't know if you want to reflect on that a little bit, because to me, even though Kamala Harris is not the president at this moment, um, that energy, there's no way it stops there.
Well, I think that clearly this film happened before the swearing in of the current administration, because it ends on a note of hope with the thought that, maybe we're going to have our first black woman president. And I was like, oh yes, I want to live in that world. But I think that we're at a moment where we have had some time to mourn. There's going to be some more grieving because there's a heck of a lot of loss going on right now. But you pick yourself up and you move on because you have to. There's not an opportunity right now to say, oh, well, I just give up, because there's so much we lose. And, a few people joke about, oh, it's time to leave the country. I'm a first generation American. All my family's from Jamaica for way back. And I have that first generation American's devotion to the opportunity that I realize wouldn't necessarily have been mine. And there's no way I'm giving up my country to people who think that this guy's vision is where we ought to go. I'm going to fight as hard as I can. And I know that every one of the women in that film is going to fight as hard as they can if they're still with us. And I just want to say, I'm really glad that you included Lillian Mobley and Sweet Alice Harris and all of the other sort of grassroots women who, I think, were they born recently, might have gone into elected office, but many of those opportunities were not available to them, whether it was through the education, the networks, the funding. But they knew how to serve the need, saw needs that they then harnessed power and went out to meet. And if we can't fix the federal government, any of us individually, we can still do the work locally to make sure that we're making a difference. And right now, when there is a whole half of the country that's trying to convince the other half that there is nothing that we can do productively together through our governments, just making city government work on a day-to-day basis, I'm beginning to view as a deeply subversive act. Government works for us. We invest in it. We get out of it what we put into it. And I encourage everybody to fight.
Yeah, to me, that's where the hope is right now. It's in our own communities, our neighborhoods, our cities. How do you see this, Professor, fitting into that educational curriculum that the director is hoping, aiming for? Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a great and wonderful idea. I think, again, I do a lot of education work, and I think it's really important. Again, many of these women, when I watched the film, I said, I had no idea. And this is the work that I do. I do work on racial justice and thinking about gender and families and education. And I think I want my children to learn this history. I think it's really important for all of our children to understand that there are all these different pathways, too, of being of service, right? And so, again, that's one thing I loved about the film, in that, yes, we want many people to go into elected office because we know that that's where the levers of power are, but we also want to encourage our children to do the grassroots community work, to be someone who is perhaps behind the scenes and pushing people forward. And I think that having this kind of information as far as our civics education, especially in California, I think that that's incredibly powerful. And I wanted to say just one other thing.
Okay, real quick.
Okay, about, I don't know any Black woman who has said, I'm sitting out now. It was this kind of idea of the election happened, people were very, very sad, but people have gotten right back up and are right back in it. And I think that that's also very powerful and a testament to Black women, too. This man is in office for now. He will not be in office forever. Our journey has not stopped because Kamala Harris did not become the president. And there's still so much work to do. And I see Black women doing this work every day, all day. And they've been doing it since, January 20th.
I say real quick, because I think we're going to try to take a few questions if there are any questions. There are roving microphones that will. So, yeah. put your hand up if you are interested in.
I'm sorry, I took the liberty of trying to ask the first question just because I forgot to mention about Professor Baldwin-Clark's work. Do you want to mention that report from 2022 that you did that was looking at restrictions on critical race theory?
Sure. I'm the faculty director of the Critical Race Studies program at UCLA. And in 2020, if everybody remembers, Donald Trump put out an executive order that was against teaching things called divisive concepts, which were concepts that weren't divisive at all. Most people did not believe in many of them, and some of them were just basic, things about civil rights, that Black people deserve to have rights. And there was a flurry of laws that came after that, even when Joe Biden became the president, and it was all over California, all over the rest of the country. And we wrote a report that basically reported on all of these different bills and laws that were passed to stop children from learning about history in our schools. Part of the issue now is that even when Joe Biden came into office, many of those they're still on the books. There's still laws that need to be fought. There's still people who are taking books out of libraries to make it impossible for children to learn basic things. And so that's what the report was about, reporting on all of these laws that have been passed that stop children from being able to learn.
And we can find it where?
You can find it on UCLA. If you go to the UCLA Law's website, our program is called the Critical Race Studies Program. We are the premier law school program that teaches about critical race studies, critical race theory, and as well as racial justice. And you can find it there on our website.
Okay, do we have our next question?
I thought someone over there had the mic first. Okay, it's me. Okay. Charles Reese, I've seen this film now, I think this is my fourth time. I saw
Wow.
it in the part in Lamert, which is on the outside where some of the people actually came. I saw it Pan-African, and I saw it this summer at Martha's Vineyard. So it's getting around. So my question, Pamela Bright-Moon, I know you're getting ready for a study guide, but the professor said something that was very interesting, that even with all the studies that we all do as historians, whatever we might be, there were some things that she did not know as well. So my question is, when is the study guide going to be ready? And I know you're looking at distribution, but I'm interested in, what about getting some distribution throughout all of the colleges, high schools, junior high schools in Los Angeles?
Well, hello there, Mr. Charles Reese. Thank you for being here. One of the things we have been working with well, let me just say this, because there's two factions. I don't want to march. I'm walking a fine line here, but the charter school system, and then with LA Unified. Okay, so we're trying I guess we were on a walk campaigning for I can't think of his first name, last name Whiteside. He won out in Palmdale for Congress, where we met a young woman who works at UCLA, as a matter of fact, and she was responsible, or was on the team that was putting together package legislation for ethnic studies in high schools. So we are working with her team so that we can start to create curriculum for 10th, 11th, 12th graders, so that it can go into the civics, curriculum. And also we're on a collegiate tour coming up, where we are pushing to get it. I'm not trying to be vague, but we're putting it together. Okay, so but the goal, of course, is so that students will understand our history and the impact that Black women have had on, California politics in particular. Thank you.
There's some folks who look kind of young here, and maybe even our students, and you can wield some power by suggesting to a professor that you've seen this film and you think that it
Yes.
might be part of your curriculum, and suggest that the professor check it out, because you can work both ways, right? Karen Bass always talks about having an inside-outside strategy, so you can do exactly what Pamela Bright-Moon is doing and trying to work on it from the outside. But if you're a student at a school, you can also agitate from the inside and say, I want this, and bring it in.
Yes, we'd appreciate that.
Next question.
Oh, hi. Just first, I want to say this is a very, very powerful film, and I appreciate it. And this is our second time coming to see a screening. I am an organizer with SEIU 2015, and I have been emailing the email that's online. I am trying to see if I can get a screening of this movie at a cultural event at the Union that I'm going to be doing in June. And I just need your contact information so that we can make this happen. You let me know the steps to take and what do I have to do. And I'm going to get this back to the higher up and be able to get this movie out to some of our other members for the cultural event. Is that possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. Meet me here after the
I think we're meeting in the lobby for
Oh, meeting
cookies
in the
and
lobby,
something.
okay.
Cookies and snacks. I love that though. Organizers organizing. Organizers
Yes.
gonna organize. Good job.
Right.
Do we have another question? Organizer's going to organize, radio broadcaster's going to radio broadcast. I know a lot of you think I'm still at KJLH, but I'm now at KBLA 1580. We have an app. We're on YouTube. I'm on every day from 6 to 9. And I would love to have all of these wonderful politically minded folks calling me and sharing their opinion and supporting, I think, independent Black-owned media right now in this political climate is very helpful. I don't have people telling me, you can't say this and you can't say that. And, you know, I'm not Joy Reid. I still have a job. So,
Right.
so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to go ahead and close. I want to once again give a very big round of applause for this incredible panel. I hope that all of you will be on my show
Thank
soon.
you.
And again, we can continue our conversation in the lobby over cookies and I think tea. It's very civilized for a rainy day.
Yeah.
And a big thank you to UCLA and the Hammer for having
Yes.
this panel and this screening.
Thank
We're
you,
so
Claudia,
very appreciative.
Bester, wherever you are, wherever you went. Thank you so much for inviting us and for giving us such great hospitality.
And
Thank-
congratulations once again. Great job.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.
Oh, we're being told to stand up for a picture.